Hi, I'm Lisha, and today I'm going to do an in-depth video on how to can green beans. For those of you who would like to learn how to pressure can, this will be very easy to follow. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First thing you want to do before you start to cut up your green beans is wash your jars, lids, and pans, and then you're going to put your jars in your pressure canner so they can go ahead and start heating up while you are cutting up the green beans. And then after they're all cut up, you're going to go ahead and you're going to put them in your jars. I am using regular mouth jars, but you can use wide mouth jars because they are easier to pack. But because I cut my green beans in half, which is called a kitchen cut, they're pretty easy to get into the regular mouth jars. When you select your green beans for canning, you don't want to use ones that are diseased or damaged. Anything that is really thin, because those will turn kind of mushy when you can them. And you don't want to use green beans that are really thick, because once they get that large, they're going to become stringy and tough, and they don't taste very good. Prepare your green beans by cutting the ends off. And then if you want to, you can cut them in half. Once I'm halfway through trimming my green beans, I go ahead and I start about 20 cups of water in a pot so that I already have it boiling when I'm ready to fill my jars. They do have to be filled with boiling water. Now that I have finished trimming and cutting all of my green beans, I go ahead and I wash them again just to make sure I get all of the debris out of them. And then after they drain, I pour them into a bowl. Try not to dump them all like I have. And then these I'm going to go ahead and pack into my jars, and then I will start pressure canning them. If you'd like to add salt to your green beans, you can. You don't have to. It doesn't change the way that the food preserves. It's just a matter of taste. For your pint-sized jars, you want half a teaspoon. For your quart jars, you're going to use a full teaspoon. Now I'm ready to start filling my jars. I went ahead and removed a jar from my canner. Make sure you never set a hot jar on a cold surface because it will break open. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill this to about 1 generous inch of a headspace. That means from the top of the jar. If you overfill these, when the food cooks, it expands and it's going to push your liquid up and out of the jar. So I just do that. I shake it down. Oh, that one's too long. That's why I like to cut these in half. It's so much easier with these. So that's about 1.5 inches. Added a couple more. So now I'm going to add my salt. Otherwise I forget. My husband prefers green beans with the salt. I put my ladle in here. Then I'm going to fill this to a 1-inch headspace. And it is very important that you have the right headspace so that this processes properly. Then you want to use your wand, spatula, whatever you have to get the air bubbles out of here. Air is not good to have around when you are preserving food. That's still a little bit shy of 1 inch, so I am going to add a little bit more. I'm going to just use a wet paper towel to wipe the rim. If I had been processing anything that had fat in it, you're going to want to use a little bit of vinegar on that, because if there's any fat on this rim, it won't seal. So when you close this up, make sure that you tighten it to fingertip tight, and then you only turn it another 1/8 to 1/4. I have all my jars in here now, so I'm going to put my lid on here and lock it into place. And then I'll let this vent for 10 minutes. And for your pint-sized jars, you're going to process them for 20 minutes. And then for your quart jars, you will process those for 25 minutes. Make sure that when you vent your pressure canner that you do it properly, because unlike a bath canner, pressure canners don't sterilize jars with boiling water. They're actually sterilized with steam. So if you don't vent this properly, it's not going to process your food right. My canner vented for 10 minutes, so then I added my weight. I'm going to process these at 10 pounds of pressure for 20 minutes. After that, I'll turn off my heat. I'll let my canner sit here, and after it reaches 0 pressure, I'll remove my weight, let it sit for 2 minutes, and then I can go ahead and remove my lid. I'll let my jars sit in here for 10 more minutes, and then I can remove them and sit them on a towel to cool. I finished canning my green beans, and I ended up with 9 pint-sized jars, which is pretty much what I usually end up getting. I do grow Provider bush beans, and I really like them because they're pretty prolific producers and highly disease resistant. I also ended up with some that I cooked fresh and then others that I froze. Next time I'm going to be putting a video on here for how to can sweet potatoes, since it is that time of year. And I appreciate you joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.